Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. It is true. The first time that I came, I was ready to be front and center to talk, and I was so confused because when is she gonna have me go up? But it wasn't my day. But it was great to see the process and great to see the layout. So as you can imagine, this morning I was super excited about breakfast and coffee, and that was my main motivator. So hopefully you guys are enjoying. Yes, thank you to the Vibes co-work space. I'm always trying to inquire about getting a spot here, come and get away and do a little bit of work and get creative. And so thank you to the space as well. A little history about myself. I've been a resident of Kitsap for going on 3 years now. I'm from Southern California, Los Angeles, born and raised in the West LA area. My parents are from Jalisco, Mexico. My mom is from Guadalajara, and so is my dad. My dad was from a little ranch on the outskirts of Guadalajara. They met in West LA, in the West LA, Mar Vista, Culver City area. About the 60s, they migrated to the area illegally, looking for a place to start a new home. I'm imagining economics were not that great. I don't know about crime and all these other things, but I'm sure economics were not the best from what I was told. And so I think it was brave for them to try something new, uproot, your home and uproot your life and go try something daring and something amazing, and without any rules and without any support and without any prior knowledge to how things work out. I'm really proud of them for that. My parents were very responsible people. My dad always paid his bills on time. He always stressed how important it was to be at a place 15 minutes early, 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early. So he was very responsible. He didn't have any criminal background. My mother, neither. My mother's mother was a seamstress in Guadalajara, so she was really good with her hands. I remember at a young age she'd make us costumes for Halloween, which I thought was super cool. We had our own custom costumes, and I thought that was amazing. From Batman to, I remember being John Travolta, being yeah. 1 year I had my little sleeves rolled up, and it was greasier that year. So yeah, my mother tried. She did a really good job, and we had indifferences in the house. We had trauma growing up. My mother, I found out later, she was abused at a young age, grew up in an abusive environment, and tried to leave the house early. I think that was the reason for the migration. And my dad came from a home where his dad was extremely responsible he was also a community lender. He'd loan people money, and at the end, I think he fell to that pressure of helping the community out. My dad ended up coming out to make money to support those debts that my grandfather had accumulated with people he was helping. And so these are stories that I remember resonating with me at a young age, working hard, being debt free, helping your family, checking in back home. And then of course with all that was taking trips to the motherland, and I'd be around my grandmothers. I remember flavors and sounds and colors and a lot of things that were nostalgic to the house, to my family, to to our lineage, I guess. And it was a lot of beautiful memories. I grew up in the West LA, Venice area, and if you're familiar with the Southern California of West LA area, it can be nice. It has the beaches and a few other amazing landmarks, but it could also be a questionable area. The area is known for high gang traffic. It probably has one of the oldest gang neighborhoods in the area of Venice 13. And if you're familiar with Venice is a high crime area. It has the beaches, but It's been said to be the ghetto by the beach. And so you have all these interesting elements that weren't far from where I grew up. And so my parents didn't speak any English. They had a hard time reading school curriculum, had a hard time reading their own bills. My dad would have me as a translator at 5, 6 years old, and it was disappointing because I couldn't break down the bill and explain to him what was going on on the electricity bill. Or it was very frustrating at that young age. So there was a lot of indifferences with being first generation born in the United States. We spoke a lot of Spanish in the house. My mom was very adamant about that. She said, well, you're gonna learn English outside of the house, but I want you to learn your tongue here at home. And she did her best with showing me food, cooking a little bit, corrected me all the time when I was not speaking well in Spanish. And so she nurtured that. And then, of course, you learn other things from your environment. As I started going to school, you had other friends that were kind of similar. Their parents were from Mexico, just different spectrums of that. Some more proper, some less proper, some gang involved, some criminal involved. So you never know. Some had parents, some didn't. Some of the kids would come with the same clothes all week. And when you're kids, you don't know. You're like, look, he's wearing the same stuff. Look, he wore this all week. And you're making fun of your peers, but you don't understand what's happening. Systemically, you don't know what's happening back home, or what's happening with the parents, or what's going on in the area. You're just acclimating and normalizing what's happening in the area. So I saw a lot of people suffer, a lot of people go through different things. I got introduced to the gangs at a young age. I'd have friends that come very young, tagging, gang mess on the walls or on their peachy notebooks. You'd have the marathon sprinters, and then you'd put a little mustache on him to look like a homie, and then you put a little bandana on him, and now he's running from the cops, right? So the other one, you draw him as a cop, and then you put the shirt with the hood on him, Anyway, the peachy notebook, right? So those were the things that you grew up around, and they were normalized. And then you'd had a friend that was like, oh, my brother went to prison, or my brother just got out of prison. And so these were normal things. And at one point, not getting along too well with my parents, having rifts with my mom, serious rifts, I felt like we were just drifting apart. She had her vision. I had siblings, so of course her attention was on my younger siblings now. I was getting into more trouble. Academically, I wasn't really part of the groups. I remember at a young age wanting to be part of the learning group, wanting to sit with the science teacher, wanting to learn like everyone else, and we just were not part of that. At a young age, you knew you didn't belong. That group was that group, and if you disrupted the class, then you gotta go, or entertain yourself over here as you can. So it wasn't that inclusive. It wasn't that inclusive, and there wasn't support groups that would tell you, hey, I'm here to guide you, or I'm here to show you, or hey, if you didn't get any rest last night, I'll help you, or if you needed to translate, let me translate for you, or you didn't understand the homework and your parents can't help you, let me help you, or let me connect you with someone that can help you. And so navigating was different, and then when you're Chicano, when you're Mexican American, it's like Latinos have a hard time understanding you, Mexicans having a hard time understanding you, and then the rest of the community, the rest of the general population also has a hard time understanding you, because you're not this nor that. You're not American and you're not Mexican. So you're kind of like in limbo. You're in limbo. And so that's where I think the criminal activity and being around those elements just seemed more prevalent. It was like, I'm expected to be that. That's okay. I remember we had a park by my house in the neighborhood that we lived in, and a decent neighborhood. You'd see the gang riding and stuff regularly coming home from dinner, or seeing family or whatever. And I remember being at the park, and one day officers stopped me. I was like 7 years old, and they come here, keep your hands out of your pocket. And I was, very impressionable. So there I go, coming and emptying my pockets and getting searched and getting treated that way. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, wow, I could do that. Apparently, I could do that. Apparently, I fit the description. Wow, and I feel like it triggered something. It triggered something, right? With time, the elements got more interesting. My friends got deeper into the gang stuff, and then me being a creative mind, I was always into drawing and copying comic books, and was always sketching and drawing. So it came a point where graffiti art was a huge thing for me. I was always in alleys and on rooftops and doing questionable things and on freeways at a very young age, and exploring the arts. I think at its early beginnings, early 80s, early 90s, was tagging was at its all-time high. Chaka, if you know Chaka, he was one of the most prolific LA writers of probably of our time, destroyed with millions of dollars of campaigning his name, Chaka. Even came out on The Simpsons, I think. Intro to The Simpsons, you see Chaka on a trash can. So, I was around that. I remember at a young age being at a yard and seeing Chaka and like 7 of his guys, and I ended up getting robbed. I had a small chain that my father gave me for my birthday, and that was just the lifestyle that I was in. I was in questionable areas, and I felt like confiding back home was not really an option. They were busy. I needed to be busy. And so art was a huge thing for me. Art was everything to me. I was very, I think, intrigued by tattoo art. It wasn't that common back then, but I was really, really mesmerized by tattoos. If you were a bad person, I'd probably be staring at you in all your amazing tattoos, because that was the culture back then. It wasn't like, baristas or anyone that had tattoos, visible tattoos. It was so taboo. It was a dirty thing to have a tattoo. So the culture was a little bit different. I was in awe and mesmerized by it. Graffiti, tattooing. I mean, all the stuff my mom was trying to keep me away from, And with time, I think my interest for going against the grain was more prevalent. So now I'd be getting out in the middle of the night to continue these endeavors, tagging and tattooing friends. And there came a point in mid-90s, there was this big crime revolution with LA gangs. And the revolution was that within the prisons, there was this infrastructure, and now there was word that tagging need to be minimized because it was bringing attention to other illicit crimes, more serious illicit crimes. So now the fellas in the neighborhood was saying, well, if you want to write, you could write, but you got to write for us. Now you're going to be for the neighborhood, and it'll be fun, and we got you. And, they paint it as an amazing and beautiful thing. And when you're impressionable at a young age, you're like, yeah, I'm in. And the rest of your friends are doing it. So you're like, yes, we're all in. And it doesn't seem abnormal. We're all losers. We're all losers, so it's okay. Now it's the club of the losers, right? And we all motivate each other. We hang out with each other. We lift each other. We fill each other's cup. But then we're also being introduced to drugs, drug abuse by the older homies. Gang violence is getting prevalent. These guys have guns. They have weapons. They have tools and things. They got connection to drugs. So it's just, now we're starting a cycle at that young age. This is maybe high school. I'm not going very much to high school at that point. The teacher doesn't see me much, and he doesn't love me anyway. He doesn't care about me anyway. So if I don't go or if I don't show up, it's not gonna matter to anyone. My mom will probably be a little upset, but we'll figure all that out later. I'll come up with some excuses or whatever the case is. So a lot of that, no pride in doing work, no pride in succeeding in class. I end up migrating from the main school to the school in the back, and the school in the back was for all the kids that did bad. You know, all the gang members, all the taggers, all the guys that were disrupting the class. You went to continuation. So I went to continuation, and continuation was like a thing, you know. You met other guys at court, or you met the other little homies in this underworld of badness, right? And like, you don't go to regular school, you go to continuation, right? Yeah, I go to continuation too. We're continuation. And so now you're part of that network, you know. They know you're really about that life. They know, yeah, you're getting in trouble, you're going against the program. All right, come on, we like you. We like you, we need you, we like you. And so you're encouraged to do more negative behavior. Whether your parents like it or not, whether you break your mom's heart, it doesn't matter. You know, the most prevalent thing is to make an impact. Make an impact on your enemies, make an impact with the police, make an impact in the neighborhood. And then art turned into vandalism quick. You know, I destroy and dissipate the neighborhood. I'd write the neighborhood everywhere, on businesses, on houses. Nothing was sacred. I didn't care about anybody or anything. And so I felt like that lifestyle introduced me to prison. That lifestyle introduced me to gang shootings. I lost friends. I had friends that were murdered in that circle. So kids that I was growing up with went to prison or were killed. I myself suffered through about a dozen shootings, if you can believe it or not. And I was actually shot once from here to where Lauren is with a small sawed-off shotgun. And even then, I didn't learn my lesson. I had my family visiting me at the hospital and coming to see me, and I had my girl there, and then I had my girlfriend there, and it was just madness, you know. And you figure like, okay, you learn your lesson, you're gonna do all right. And I feel like that just made me feel like I was untouchable. Like now I had earned some stripes. Now I was on another tier of accomplishments, of accolades, right? Been to prison, I've been to county jail, now I've been shot. So now I'm like, you know, my bravado was a little different, and I respected people less. I respected myself less. At that time, now I'm having kids, so I'm with someone that was also abused at a young age, which was interesting. We'd have a lot of turmoil in the house. Of course, she didn't agree with my lifestyle, but she found me that way. You know what I mean? She knew me that way. She accepted me that way. But we didn't. After a little while, we didn't get along, and we had 3 kids. And so then I started learning about the judicial system. You know, being impacted through my crimes and through my behavior, and I lost my kids quick. At a young age. I wasn't fit to represent myself. I didn't even have the money to get an attorney to speak up for me. Although I felt like I was a decent father. I was a good father. I know I was lacking in a lot of areas, and that was just the lifestyle that I was in: drug abuse, gang violence, and my kids were now introduced to this lifestyle. And then once we stopped getting along, and then the lifestyle wasn't good for her. So then now I had, you know, reasons to not see my children. I lost my kids, went to court for a long battle, lost my kids. And I feel like after a while, it started getting old. I started getting tired. I wanted to see my kids. I wanted to spend quality time with people that I loved. And I felt like all these things were just hindering me. And I felt so bad for believing this whole game. I felt bad for falling for it, for saying, yeah, okay, yeah, oh, I'm the first one to submit myself to that, or yeah, I'll jump into that fire first. I feel like that was really tough to deal with. And then it was having a vision, right? It was having the vision. I'd always felt like I was made to do something great, but I just didn't know how to do it. And I was around people that weren't going to encourage that. If I wanted to do a homeless feed, my homies weren't going to come and help me with that, you know? So slowly I'd start doing things on my own. I'd go to Skid Row with my kids, and I'd buy blankets. I'd buy, you know, $3 Walmart blankets with a $1 candy cane, and I'd buy $200 worth. And that's where I started this new culture of being empathetic, being a different person. I mean, I used to get upset when a homeless man will come in my face. I'll be the first one to, boom, toss the change little bit of change you got in your hand, boom, get out of my face. And so all these things were now like, you know, but it's also from being around a new person. My wife now encouraged better behavior. She saw the way that I was living before and accepted me as I was, and was willing to work with me to sharpen me up, to brighten me up, to polish me up. And so she saw a lot of things there that I wasn't aware of or I didn't see. And at this point, I was already involved with escaping the neighborhood. So I was introduced to music. I was introduced to new tools, and I grasped the tools quickly. So I started doing recordings with home equipment with a couple of friends of mine, and I needed that. I needed to do records. I needed to create music. I needed to tell my story. I needed to talk about it. I needed to talk about all my pain, losing my kids, in differences with my parents, in differences with friends I grew up with that were now on the opposite side. I mean, so many conflicting things that were going on in my life. Losing friends to gang violence, to drug abuse, to the prison system. It was overwhelming. I had a Native American friend that worked with my mom. My mom, I told you, was good with her hands. She created garments, and then coincidentally, she became connected with Body Glove, a huge conglomerate. In their early beginnings, she did all their sportswear out of a small garage in West LA. And the same back in the 80s, they were a small business. Robin Pacone and the Pacone family, Body Glove, introduction to new things and new ways and new cultures. And I feel like all of that helped drive and move us into a different direction. My mom started doing a lot better for herself. My parents ended up having 40, 50, 60 employees at one point from the garment manufacturing. They had tons of accounts, and there was still that kind of like that disconnect. Although I saw that, I saw all of that growing up, I wasn't really part of that. I was a liability. So even hanging out with like my little sister, and now I have a little brother at that point now, and it was like, maybe we don't want you going to the mall with them, and maybe you should stay, they got to stay here and you go ahead, and that. So now we're breaking up the family. You got to go that way because you're in some bad stuff, and we got to keep an eye on the kids. And so I feel like this developed a behavior in my household, more issues, and then by then I'm like couch surfing. I live at a friend's house at a young age, 16, 17. I'm already in the neighborhood, living in the neighborhood. So I'm now involved with more illicit things. And as I get introduced to my friend from Oregon, Native American friend that my mom introduced me to, she brought me out to the Pacific Northwest, and I got introduced to new things. She introduced me to some people from her tribe, introduced me to new flavors, new ideas. I remember her being like disgusted with the idea that we were around dope and around guns and around these things, and they must have been prevalent to her because I must have showed her, told her, and so she tried, she tried to find a way. And I had other friends outside of my circle that would try and infect me with positivity and try to support my endeavors. And by then I'm already copying comic books, I'm tattooing buddies, I'm doing the graffiti, the tattooing, and I'm doing prints. And then I get sent to prison. After prison, I felt like I brushed up with with patience. I was able to sit down and do prison art. So I did a lot of ballpoint art. Still kept up. I feel like art really helped me out during a lot of these phases in my life. Art was always prevalent. In one way or another, art was always there for me. When everybody turned their back because of my behavior, art never turned its back. And I could sit there and create and manifest things that were up here and right here. And they gave me worth when I knew I was doing bad. I was doing bad, and I didn't have that worth within my group. You know, I wasn't exhibiting the behavior, so I couldn't expect that I was getting that back. And I think from that recording studio and working that music, that turned into something huge. I ended up, that passion grew into a business. So I ended up doing about 150, 200 records. I had a partner that also was into illicit things, but funded the project and was like, hey, we can do this, and I don't want to do this no more, and maybe we can do that together, and, you know, you really got this, you know, down for a nag, and you know, I wanted to help everyone. I wanted to work with everyone. I wanted to, you know, save the homies, you know what I mean? And so I gave that a shot, and when we did develop this recording label and created this thing of ours, now it gave me worth and it gave me a voice. And so what happened was I ended up getting a huge distribution deal with EMI Latin. At the time, it was one of the biggest distributors for music in North America. And I couldn't believe that had fallen in my lap, but it was just from being persistent and constantly doing music. And then at this point now I'm out in the streets promoting my music and promoting my art. I kind of leave the tattooing alone, and I leave that alone to do the music. I feel like music really consumed me, and I promoted that for a while. After having an extensive catalog, did a lot of touring, so a lot of shows abroad. Coincidentally, I guess Japan loves the Cholo Chicano culture. Wow, you know, amazing. You know, who would have knew? Right? So you're going and you're seeing other cholos in Japan? Wow. And they emulate the lifestyle. Of course, very respectful people, beautiful people. I don't think they engage in that behavior. I don't think so. It's just a cultural thing. They love, you know, they love the look, they love the style. And some people take offense, you know. They're like, hey, they're stealing from us, or, you know, I see it a little different. I see like I have a job, so they're supporting my business. They love my music, and they love my style, and they love my traumas, right? And as you see me, I've tried to be as I think as raw to my style as I can. I've been here for a few years, a couple years now, 3 years. Migrated from Southern California, and at this point now, I've traveled the world. I've been to a lot of places that I never thought that I'd be. I'm doing now art all over the world. I'm doing murals. I'm doing tattoos globally. I'm tattooing rappers. I'm tattooing producers. I'm even doing acting now, which is a crazy thing. I'm getting asked to do parts in movies and parts in TV shows. I'm sitting down having breakfast in Santa Monica one day, and Howie Mandel, America's Got Talent, if you're familiar, Howie Mandel walks by with his family, and I remember I'm sitting with my kids, and his wife, after they walk by, and he compliments my family and my daughter. His granddaughter looked just like my daughter. My daughter had really light blonde, almost blonde hair, and resembled the little girl. And he comes back and he asks me if I'd ever done any acting. His wife asked me, and I said no. And I got friends that have done it, but I've never done it. And I told him I just don't have the time. And she said, well, give it a shot, you know. So she gives me her number, and that turned into another endeavor. I ended up doing music videos. I ended up doing TV shows. I ended up doing commercials. I mean, when I tell you that you can do anything you want in this beautiful world, no matter what, no matter where you come from, that is the truth. I think you need to have a big heart and believe in yourself. and have the will to tear down doors. But all of that takes vision, right? It takes vision. Like I wouldn't have believed it had I not thought of it, right? Had I not believed in the vision, had I not had the vision to do it, right? To continue and to push in that direction, and using art as the lifeline to save me. That's the only thing I had. So music, now acting, and just until recently painting. So there was a famous rapper that was murdered a couple years back, Nipsey Hussle, huge California artist, huge West Coast rap figure. And I believe that if he would have kept going, he would have been up there with Snoop Dogg at one point. Super huge young artist and young legend. And his story really caught my eye because he was murdered by a friend, someone from his neighborhood. And because of my ambition to be out of my area, that caused a lot of turmoil with friends that I grew up with, that I was running amok with at a young age. So those friends started looking at me different, and they started treating me different. So as I wanted to better myself, then I wasn't part of the group. Then I was doing things that were against the group, which I wasn't. But then, hey, we're here getting together, man. Where are you at? Where are you at? I'm in Europe. I'm in Europe right now. Sorry. And when you get calls like that and you start thinking like, man, I took bullets for these guys. I took bullets for these guys. And so that's when you're like, okay, now I see who my real gang is. And that's my wife, my kids, right? My community. That's my gang, right? And so respectfully, I felt like my direction was important. It was important for my kids. It was important for me. And it was something that I needed to see through the art. And because I had now traveled all over the world and used the music to do the tattooing and so on and so forth, it was one menu with many services. And I did them well. I mean, I've done huge inclusive murals even here in Kitsap. So I brought these ideas here now, and because they feed my kids, they put money on my table, and they help us have worth, right? It's a business that I'm very proud of. I tell my kids, do your best, study hard. No one is gonna ask you to come to the table. You need to come to the table. And another important one was advocating for my kids, like being there at the school, talking to administrators. When you're here without the permission to be here, you're trying to be under the radar. So when my school is calling and, hey, he didn't come into school today, my parents want to hide under a rock. They want to kill me, right? And so the most natural thing is to be like, well, let's avoid all of that. But me, I feel like the harm is most done in avoiding all that stuff. And so I advocate for my kids. If you talk to the administrators at my kids' school, they'll say a bunch of amazing things, but really, you know what they want to say. You know what they want to say. But it's because I'm there, Hey, what happened? Hey, she told me this. Hey, what do you mean? Or, I had a teacher accuse my son of some stuff. And I'm like, nah, you can't accuse my brown kid, of some stuff. You need to help him. How about you get to the core of the issue, help him, and then when that doesn't work out, then get at us, and then we'll see what we can do to help him out. But I feel like you need to support my brown child, And these are ideas that maybe it's my trauma, seeing all the negative behavior and the lack of interest to help people and the lack of love and the lack of empathy, a thing that I've had to work on myself. Empathy, a huge thing for me, a big word in my house, My wife, hey, be careful, be nice, always empathy, empathetic. That's part of the vision, is to be empathetic. So with all that, I've been blessed to put myself in other people's shoes now and say, what do you need? What does he need? And just with these simple new ideas and changing my trajectory, I've been able to gain accounts here in Kitsap out of the same fear that I want my kids to be treated with fairness and with love. I work with 200 kids weekly now. So I tell my story with 200 kids. I work with 150 kids here at Kitsap at the Bremerton Youth Academy every week. And then I work with about 50 kids, 40 to 50 kids at Pierce County at the Juvenile Detention Center in there. And these are things that are really near and dear to my heart because I could relate to that. I could relate to sitting in a cell. I could relate to being alone. I could relate to feeling unwanted. I could relate to not having the tools to succeed. And so when I sit there with these 90% brown kids, it's like it doesn't matter where you come from. The sickness is still the same, right? It could be LA, it could be Poulsbo, Washington, it could be anywhere, right? The pandemic is real. And if we don't advocate for our kids and we don't stand up for people that need it, then we're just sitting back and letting it happen. It doesn't matter if it's not your problem. It goes back to being empathetic, because it goes back to putting yourself in someone's shoes and saying, you know what, I think I'm gonna speak up for that, or I think I'm gonna, say something about that. And that's where I've been at. And sometimes, my wife is like, hey, chill, don't be so nosy. Don't be so nosy. And I go, hey, wait a minute. You're the one that taught me to be empathetic. So what you saying, not to care about these people? Right? And that's new ideas, a new vision, correct? And so with that new vision has been using the tools that have saved my life to help other youth navigate. This is in front of my studio in Seattle. Last year, I opened my shop in Seattle. I had a couple of employees, but I feel like that's what started the rabbit hole of wanting to work with people. The face of my shop was all burnt up after about 90 days there. Shortly after this event, the face of my shop, on this side, was burnt up. Law enforcement didn't really have any answers. They brought in the FBI to talk to me because they felt that I was bringing in a criminal element to Seattle. And so after paying for guest artists to fly in, after paying to do free events, after paying to do block parties, after paying to bring in lowriders, after paying to bring guest artists from around the world, after clients of mine, soccer moms, are coming from abroad, Canada, France, New York, Atlanta, the 1% of money allocated for the arts in Washington, which I highly support, and we're excluded from that. So anytime you get a hotel in Seattle, there's a small percentage that goes towards art projects that get funded in Washington. Now, I've applied for all of these. Beautification for boxes, beautification in hospitals, beautification. But it just goes to show you, like, there's a huge indifference, right? There's a huge indifference. So the 1% that we support, we're actually being criminalized. Our business is being criminalized from the activity that's going on in the area. And my shop was not far from SeaTac. Almost, everything is accessible there. And I feel like that was the rabbit hole. That's where I was really confused. And I thought, well, we pay taxes and we hire people and we employ, and people come and see us from all over the place. What's the problem? And then I thought, well, I don't want my kids getting treated like this. One day they're gonna be here by themselves, and I don't want them getting treated like whatever they think is wrong. And so that started the Locals program. I've always been a local. But it was like, what local do you really want to be? What do you want to project, right? And I wanted to be a good local in my neighborhood. I wanted to be a good homie. And I never had to, turn to law enforcement to do it. I never had to turn to their help to do it. I was able to decipher that on my own and say, hey guys, thank you so much, but I got other things I gotta take care of, before I go to your meeting, or let me figure these things out, and then we'll talk later. So it was deciphering how to separate myself from the group, and I didn't have to turn anyone in or harm anyone to do it. I did it by simply staying positive and working on my projects and spreading positivity through the tools that I was introduced to. So a few more minutes that we have left, I'd like to go through some of these images of where I'm at. I'd love to show you images from the past. I didn't dig around too much, so I just wanted to show you guys what's going on now. And the locals that we are now we're leading children off streets. So I started a nonprofit here in Washington. I go visit my kids weekly, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Manny works with me. Amazing guy. Manny also works with youth. My brother Matt, he's been part of the program by giving us work. He's a local business here in Bremerton. We've refaced his building. So anytime that we could come and do murals, do art, do interesting projects for you, portion of the funds goes to helping my youth. And we got a lot of youth that we work with from all over the state. It's not just from here. They're housed here, but they come from everywhere. So this is in UC Irvine with my group in Los Angeles. So I've extended the works to California in hopes that I can also infect with these new ideas of love and positivity and inclusivity. That's my team at UC Irvine. We certified a group of young scholars. Some of these guys are admitted at the university to be part of a higher education program and things that we've been able to facilitate through the program. So super exciting connections. Guys that would never have thought that they would be walking in universities. And then here I'm seeing my kids graduate from the Bremerton Academy here in Kitsap. I hang out with them for about 6 months and do art with them, and then I get to see them graduate. And then after that, we do one-on-ones and check in with these youth to make sure that they're staying on track and that their neighborhood is not taking them back into that same cycle. I do anything from photography to graffiti arts, the stuff that saved my life, right? The tools that I was destroying with, now we build with, right? So there's some of our youth going over cameras and then going over the spray paint process if they hadn't done it before. I also create cultural coloring books. So a lot of the materials that I use, I manufacture them from scratch, I build them. So there's nothing that you're gonna find in my curriculum that's used or borrowed or purchased. Everything is created in-house. So I make cultural coloring books, cultural coloring sheets, and I have a gift for everyone today. So if we can, pick one and pass it out, pass the rest down. And these are, something that you could use on your own time back home, or hand them to your kids, or however you like. It's good to recharge. It's a little, it has a little color in it. We've got Aztec goddesses, and I've got a homie ironing his clothes. You don't know where he's going, but he's looking sharp. There's a lowrider outside his window, and then I've got a clown drinking a coffee. He's probably at CreativeMornings, I think, hearing the conversations, right? But all these images, and these images resonate with the little homies because their parents or their grandparents had something to do with clowns and homies and tattooing. And so these images are things that make them feel value, make them feel worth, make them feel included, right? Great gentleman right here, Mr. Dennis Kerwood from the Academy. Super great guy. He believes in the program. He's been instrumental in bringing us back every year. It'll be our third year. We would have worked with 600 youth now to this day. 600 youth, which I know sounds fake, right? It sounds fake. It's like, from where? But they're out here. And you see them. They're all out here. A lot of brown faces that are not included at the table. So my story resonates with these kids, right? If you go around asking them, hey, why are you here? What, it's the same story. Oh no, I wasn't loved. I wasn't included. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing so much of We have
Thank you.
4 minutes to open up the floor to questions and conversation, so if you can stay up there for a little bit.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Well, really, it's just how can we help? What can we do? This is a life and culture that I know nothing about, and I feel like I have this opportunity to ask you how we can help.
Amazing. So I think creating more groups where we can talk about it, connecting after the event, and by all means ask as many questions as you want. I put up the funds for these projects. God willing, I've been doing this for a while, so I feel like my equity, I could price it at an amount that could support my kids, but also support my family. I've exhausted a lot of resources into helping other youth, and in my home, it's been tough because we know it's important, but you can't save the world unless your house is whole. So anytime I sell a painting, anytime I get commissioned to do designs, I've been commissioned by the Coffee Oasis, I've been commissioned by Pierce County, I've been commissioned by Connection Credit Union, I've been commissioned by Taste of Mexico Silverdale, Mezcalitos Mexican Restaurant. I mean, I've got art throughout the peninsula and beyond. So I think discussing what future projects looks like, and even saying, hey, I would like to come and visit the youth and see what their story is, or I'd like to participate or see, because what I always encourage is to come and see first. Come and see before. I can tell you all day and tell you, hey, we need $10,000 because we're going to split that in between cameras and tattoo machines and notepads and you name it, right? But I want you to come and see the need. I want you to talk to them because it's deeper than that. And if you have an opportunity, if we do form that platform where you can have that engagement, then it I think it inspires you even more to saying, wow, okay, let me talk to my friends now, because this is something that's real. This is something that's real. It's really happening here. Thank you. Yes.
A comment and a question.
Yes.
I'm typically scared of clowns, but this does not scare me.
Yeah.
Because I know that you're a safe person.
Thank you.
But, I am curious about your pieces that you have brought.
That is a really good question. That is a very good question, because the clowns are a huge thing within Chicano culture. It's like Russian prison art. Everything has its meaning, right? Everything has its, it represents something. It's the same with Chicano art. Inside the system, you have, guys that are creating all day, and some of the representations of these designs emulate, the Sacred Heart, praying hands, clowns, some religious figures, some religious images, but then like the clown would be a face that we use in prison, because you're not gonna tell the guys on the tier that you're sad that day because you miss your sister, your kids. You're not gonna come out the cell. Hey, what's wrong, buddy? You need some tissue paper? Like, no. That stuff, you have to mask it. You have to hide it, right? So now you got your clown mask, and yeah, the clown's gonna have a smiley face, maybe a little teardrop, but that's a representation of who we are inside. It's our mask. I love the clowns. I love the clowns. I love tattooing clowns. I love painting clowns. I think it resonates with me, the idea of hiding my true emotions, right? Hiding my true pain. And so I even at a young age, I connected with clowns. I know it's a scary thing. For me, it's been something different. Thank you. Yes.
Do you offer, when you work with the youth and bring them up into kind of supporting them in these creative fields, do you offer like apprenticeships?
I do.
So
Yeah.
What kinds of those do you offer? What have you seen?
So for the youth, for the youth that are art driven, I do engage with them in a way where they can create a business out of this. So anything that they put their hands on, my main message is independent entrepreneurship. So if I could tell you to create your own business, if I could guide you to create your own business, then that's where we're winning, right? To create characters in the community that are going to be successful enough to hire other people, to infect other people, right? To use that to I think create a culture of a good, healthy economy, correct? By saying, hey, yeah, you're good on the grill, but what about opening your own hamburger stand, right? Or you're good with tattooing. How about I take you on the road with me and we tattoo at a convention abroad, and instead of you being an apprentice, you could be an award-winning artist. And I've done that with colleagues and friends and reentry friends and reentry peers that have come out of prison, and their equity is not that high because they're expected to give the art away. They're expected, oh, you just got out of prison? Yeah, $10, tap me up, $10 for the whole sleeve. And it's not, it's not, I don't think it's fair. If you spend your life working on your craft, on your trade, then you should get top dollar for it. I mean, we got small businesses out here that are charging $17 for a grilled cheese sandwich, handmade, artisan. I don't knock it. They're delicious. But if a homie's telling you he charges $1,000 for, a piece, by all means, let's save up that money and support the homie in his endeavors. And if he's a serious artist, then let's go, right? Now we're encouraging people to be the best that they can. So yes, there are apprenticeship programs where you're good with your hands and work on cars. Then I can connect you with someone that does that. If you're good in construction, then we have a union group that works with youth that have construction jobs. So we do our best to align you where you belong. Yes, I think you were thinking about
this beautiful painting or creation.
Thank you. So I was blessed to be invited to do art for the Bainbridge Museum of Arts. It'll be 1 year now since I did this collection. When they brought me on board, they basically gave me the wall. They gave me a wall and they gave me a stipend, and they said, do what you want. I think they were even under the impression that I was going to paint the actual wall. And so, I thought outside the box, and I thought, well, I'm going to do something better than that. I'm going to create a whole collection. Culturally, I wasn't connected with it. My parents were Jehovah's Witness, like my mom was Jehovah's Witness, so there was no altars at the house. They were very strict, strict religious regimen in the house, because I feel like they had a lot of trauma and things were going on, so they needed to have something that was real and something that was impactful in the home. So altars and Day of the Dead and sugar skulls didn't resonate with me. I'm more connected with prison art and Chicano prison art and things that I developed because of my story. When they asked me to do it, I was so confused. I go, damn, I know I'm Mexican, but I don't know how to do Mexican stuff sometimes, and so I really had to dig deep within, within the culture. Went to the market and saw a Modelo stand, and then saw the first sugar skull there. And so that was the start of a big collection. This is part of that collection. It took me about 5 months to create this piece and maybe about 8 other pieces. I was blessed to sell one to the museum. So Cynthia Sears, the owner of the museum, purchased one and about this size. And we've used those funds to support these endeavors. And so I've been really blessed that I was able to create this collection and others just like it. But I had a lot of fun. I used acrylics. I did use spray paint, some spray paint to coat the first layer. And then I used acrylic brush paint, cheap acrylics, nothing fancy. Once I used a couple stencils, and then I painted the butterfly. I put in these stipples in detail with marker, metallic marker, a little metallic marker. And then I put in the gold leafing as a border. as a border, and then I sealed the whole painting with an epoxy. I like the look. I like the look that it gives it. A lot of my paintings now, whether they're 3, 4, 5 years old, I like to circle back and now add this epoxy resin to it. And the same with that piece, the Happy Clown. Not the same process, but similar. That's all acrylic brush paint. I might have done the foreground a little bit with some spray, just to give it that rawness and to give it that look. But everything else was acrylic and brush, and then sealed with resin. A lot of pieces I don't sell too much of the originals, unless you really absolutely have to have it, like Cynthia Sears. Thank you. Any?
All right, yeah, we're gonna have to pause. I hate to take the mic.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
story.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you so much.